can put on the record as far as exhibits?
Yes, Judge. Ms. Moreno, Hermio Moreno have gone over her exhibits, and we had no objection to any of her picture exhibits. And that's how R1 through 78.
78?
No,
R1 through what?
R1 through R78. Those are the respondents' exhibits, and we had no objection to those.
And Mr. Gray, do you agree with that stipulation?
I do, Your Honor.
All right, R1 through 78 are admitted.
And then we got through only a portion of our exhibits, but of the ones that we did get through, 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 from the movement were admitted with no objection, or at least no objection was proposed to those.
Well, Judge, if I could speak on my objections, I'd prefer that.
That's fine.
Well, I'm not asking for objections yet. I'm just asking for the ones that y'all stipulate to. So is it, if I heard those correctly, is it movements 1 and then 7 through 18?
No, Judge. I'm objecting to number 8.
Okay.
Yes, it was 1 through 6. I mean 1, and then we skipped to 7. So we didn't.
Well, I think it's easier if I say which ones I agree to, because I think.
Okay, let's do that.
So I agree to admit number 1, number 7, number 9 through 18.
Okay. All
Number,
right, then move. I'm sorry, any others, Ms. Moreno?
I agree to admit 20 through 29, 31 through 36, 48. And that's it.
All right, and Mr. Gray, do you have any objections to those that Ms. Moreno stipulated to?
No, Your Honor.
All right. For the record, movements 1, 7, 9 through 18, 20 through 29, 31 through 36, and 48 are admitted. All right, any other stipulations or agreements or preliminary matters that we need to address from either side?
No.
Nothing here.
At this time, Mr. Ventura, I need you to start your video and unmute for me. And Ms. Villarreal, if you'll unmute as well. Mr. Ventura, are you having trouble?
Yeah, there you go. It's working now. Is it unmuted? Can you hear me?
No, I can hear you. I
Yeah.
just need to be able to see you.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Perfect. There we go. All right. Anyone that's going to provide testimony in today's hearing, if you would please raise your right hand to be sworn.
All right.
Do each of you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Scott, it looks like from the pleadings, you filed this request for temporary orders. And so you're going to be allowed to proceed first. It's my understanding the parties entered into a kind of a Band-Aid MSA with Judge Walker and that they were doing week on, week off until we could have a temporary orders hearing. But I'm going to let each of you give a brief opening so you can outline to the court what your requested relief is today. But Ms. Scott, you're going to be allowed to proceed first. So Ms. Scott, if you'd like to give your opening statement, you may do so at this time.
Thank you, Judge. Judge, we have before you 2 parents and a child, Jaden Ventura. My client, Stacy Lariel, has been the primary caregiver of this child almost since birth. Now, that doesn't say that the father has not been involved in the child's life, because he has, and he'll tell you about that. But Stacy has always been the parent, the primary parent of this child. She has always been the primary residence of this child. She has, during certain times of the child's life, allowed for Jaden to stay with his father and spend periods of time with his father. But she has been the primary. She has provided for his needs. She has provided for a better environment. She's done everything within her power, to make sure that Jaden has the best environment and the best support system that she could. She did all of this without any support financially from Mr. Ventura, the respondent in this case. We're asking the court to continue that relationship that Stacy already has with the child. We're asking the court to continue the relationship that the child himself wants, which is to have the primary residence with his mother. And so we'll keep it short because we're on a time, but that is our request, Your Honor, that the primary be given to Stacy Valerio, that they be joint managing conservators, that Mr. Carlos Ventura be ordered to pay standard guideline medical support and child support. And of course, we've asked for reasonable attorney's fees, because we have tried to resolve this matter without the court's interaction, but that has not been successful.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Ms. Moreno, would you like to give your opening at this time?
Thank you, Judge. Judge, the issues in this case are who's going to have the exclusive right to designate the primary residence of the child. And I believe that my client's testimony is going to be that Stacy has not always been the primary parent, as opposing counsel stated, that even on occasions she has had to surrender Jaden Ventura to Mr. Ventura because of her instability in her home life and her inability to care for him. I think Mr. Ventura will talk about some poor decisions that Stacy's made with relation to this child, and the type of relationships or conditions that she's had in her personal life that had interfered with her ability to care for Jaden. Mr. Ventura is going to tell this court about everything that he's done for Jaden and his mother as well, because Stacy has had times when she's not been in a position to care for him, and she's even conceded that point in the past. So Judge, my client will be asking to be the parent with the exclusive right to designate the primary residence of the child. He will tell this court the steps that he's done to enroll this child in school so that he can start in a timely fashion. And he will tell you about his relationship and bond. And Judge, we're also asking that medical and dental support be maintained by my client, and that petitioner should have guideline support and a standard possession order.
Thank you, Ms. Moreno. Mr. Gray, would you like to give a brief opening?
I'll defer, Your Honor.
Did you say no, sir?
No, sir. No, thank you. I'll
All right,
defer.
thank you. Ms. Scott, you may call your first witness.
Yes, Judge, I will call Stacy Valerio.
You may proceed.
Good morning, Stacy. I'm going to just remind you that we are going to keep it short. We're going to cover everything we need to, but we may not be able to get into everything that you'd like to get into, okay?
Okay.
So we're here today asking this court to provide you with the primary residence of Jaden. Could you tell us a little bit about Jaden?
Yes. Jaden is a smart, young, brilliant, smart kid. He's his own little person, and I say he's his own little character.
How old is Jaden?
He is 10. He'll be 11 August 30th.
Okay. And school starts in your district, which is in Victoria, Texas, correct?
Correct.
When
August
does
18th, which is tomorrow.
it starts tomorrow? And this case started back in 2020 with a filing by the Attorney General's office. Is that right?
Yes.
And you were made aware of that at some point, and you filed your own response, correct?
Yes.
Do you know what the Attorney General's office, their lawsuit was about?
Because Carlos had him on Medicaid.
Okay. And could you tell us how that came to be?
So I worked at a clinic. It was Access Health, and there they help families with low income, and they recommended me because I was trying to apply for Jaden, and they recommended for they told me, why don't you have the dad apply, and he can qualify for like our $10 or $20 because that's they try to help communities, because if for him to be an insurance, it could cost $300 every pay period out of my check, and trying to make ends meet with that. And I even set up the appointment for Carlos. I did everything, but Carlos went and got Medicaid for him instead of going through the job. And I only did that because my job, they saw that I didn't qualify, and they told me, well, why don't you, they recommended it to me.
Okay. So am I correct in saying that there was health care or some sort of health insurance program available through your job, and you suggested that Carlos apply for it, but he instead applied for Medicaid?
Yes, ma'am.
And so that initiated a lawsuit by the Office of the Attorney General against you.
Correct.
All right. So, excuse me? Oh,
I'm sorry?
I heard someone. So moving forward, at that time, Jaden was living with you, correct?
Yes.
And has Jaden ever lived with his dad?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Has Jaden ever lived with his dad?
Yes, he has.
Okay, could you tell us about that?
So me being I considered myself as a single parent since Jaden literally was born. Carlos has never had a job for where I would say, well, let me ask for help. So I had a job opportunity. My brother and my sister-in-law, we moved to Wisconsin, and my sister-in-law would take care of Jaden while I was at work, and I would take care of her kids while she was at work. And we were helping each other out because the job pay was way better for me. But I signed on through a contract, and if I terminated my contract, I would have to pay fines basically. And my sister-in-law moved to Philadelphia, so I didn't have that babysitter, and I didn't trust anyone to take care of Jaden. So I sent him back to Texas, but it was more with his dad, Carlos's dad, that I sent Jaden back to, because I knew
Okay, hold on. So let's talk dates here. How old was Jaden when he moved back to Texas?
this was the end of November, and my contract didn't end till April of the following year. I want to say 2016. So the end of November 2016, and I was able to come back March, the end of March 2017.
Okay, so you moved to Wisconsin in 2016 with Jaden, correct? You had childcare and support, but when that began to wane, when it began to end, when it ended, you decided that it would be better for Jaden to be back home. And at that time, you sent him to Carlos's parents. Is that right?
Yes, because Carlos lived with his parents, but he was never really there 24/7 for Jaden. And my
Okay.
mother too was back in Texas to where she could help.
Okay, so is that the only time that Jaden has stayed with his father or his paternal grandparents for an extended period of time?
I don't recall how long. There's one more instinct. I worked at a clinic, and with COVID going on, I asked Carlos if Jaden could stay more at his house because we didn't know what COVID was really about. And me working at the clinic, I didn't want to, because we saw patients with COVID, literally.
Okay. So we're talking about 2020, is that right?
Yes, and this was from when school started, which was August, to when the court systems, when this got filed, because Carlos told me, I got this letter, but don't worry about it. I'm gonna send that we're co-parenting, you know, you're a great mom and we have something going on, and so they don't mess it up. So
Okay,
then
hold on,
Uh-huh.
because that's a little confusing. So, not Carlos, Jaden moved with his dad, or didn't really move. You
Well,
placed
not really.
him. Hold on. You placed Jaden with his dad in August of 2020 because you were working in a clinic, correct?
I don't recall exactly, but I want to say I told him when school started. Well, you know, when COVID started, but he was in school and I was still seeing him. I was still getting him, sorry. And then when school started, he did stay with his dad a couple of weeks because then the attorney general filed this, and I got scared, and I knew Carlos was going to try. He wasn't telling me everything that was going on.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, Jaden was placed with his dad while you were working at a clinic in order to prevent him from being exposed to COVID.
Correct.
And this was in 2020.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're not sure if it was in August, but you believe it was about the time that school was starting.
Yes.
And that's the latter half of the year school beginning, or the earlier part of the year when school began.
Give me 1 second. I don't remember if it was ending the school year or the beginning of the school year. I'm so nervous right now. I'm so sorry.
That's fine.
I want to say it was when COVID started and they started making us wear masks and shield faces at work. So that was actually March, April, but I'm not 100%.
Okay, but at that time, you did not, you allowed Jaden to spend most of his time with his father, but you were not relinquishing your rights as his parent. You were
It was-
looking out, hold on, you were looking out for Jaden's safety and his health, with COVID being a concern and you being in the clinic.
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, could we admonish all parties to,
Yeah, Mr. Ventura, I muted you because it's not your turn to talk yet. And when you talk, there's a machine that's taking down everything that we say. You're going to get an opportunity to tell me everything you want to tell me, but now's not the time to do it. So I'm going to mute you because your lawyer will object if there needs to be something said during her testimony. You may continue, Ms. Scott. And one other admonishment, Ms. Villarreal, you're anticipating what your lawyer's asking, and sometimes you're talking over her, which makes it, one, harder for the judge to follow, but two, the machine can't take down two people talking at the same time. So please let your lawyer finish the question before you start giving the answer. All right, Ms. Scott, you may continue.
thank you. So, has Carlos Ventura, the father of Jaden, paid any child support since his birth?
No, ma'am.
Has he provided any financial support to you for Jaden and his expenses and his needs?
Never provided anything.
So has he bought any school supplies, clothing, food, paid for field trips, paid for school lunches, paid for anything like that since Jaden was born?
I know he's put him in basketball and soccer, so he paid for that. School supplies, I've always bought them. Clothes, they buy it for him, but they make him, it's more of like it stays at their house.
So hold on, before Jaden will come back home to you, they will take those clothes off of him and make them remain at his grandparents' home. Is that what you're saying?
80% of the time, yes.
Has Carlos ever provided you, have you ever asked Carlos for any money or financial assistance in helping with Jaden?
No, because to my knowledge, he's never had a job,
Okay,
like a stable job. I apologize.
okay. And this is from the time that Jaden was born all the way to the age of 10, which he is now. You're saying that his father has never had a stable job that you are aware of.
Correct, that I am aware of.
In the time that you were providing for and taking care of Jaden, where were you all residing?
Do I say the address or
Yes, what county was it in?
Fort Bend?
Okay, and what was the address of the home?
211 Douglas Street, Richmond, Texas 77469.
And Judge, just for the record, we've already admitted pictures of the Richmond home, which are P20 through P28. I won't publish those, but Miss Stacy, that home that you were living in, it was not really well, you didn't have a lot of money, right? So it's a very, and I don't mean any offense, but it's a very poor home. It had a lot of issues, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Can I say one more thing?
Well, and hold on just 1 second. I need to take a brief second. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Ms. Scott, that I'm not counting any of that against you. Judge Hepper just was, like I thought, giving me a case for 130 and just wanted to talk to me briefly about it. All right, we're back on the
Okay.
record. Ms. Scott, you may continue.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Stacey, you have left that home of meager conditions and you've moved to Victoria into a much nicer, much larger home, which would afford Jaden a very different and better experience, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And Jaden has, of course, been to that home before, correct?
Yes.
And has he indicated to you that he feels more comfortable?
Objection, Your Honor, as to hearsay, calls for hearsay.
Same.
You've also done a review of the school in Victoria, Texas, correct?
Correct.
And the school that is in Victoria, Texas is very comparable to the school that Jaden is currently attending here in Fort Bend, Texas, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, it calls for speculation, lack of personal knowledge, and it calls for hearsay.
Judge, I have,
Let me answer that, ma'am.
you've seen that they have a very, they're very similar in comparison and statistics, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, it calls for hearsay.
Objection's overruled. You may answer that, ma'am.
Stacey, you can answer.
Yes.
Okay. And you have seen the exhibits, petitioners 19 and petitioners 20. Petitioners 19 being Howell Middle School of Victoria, Texas, and the 2021 ranking, and petitioners 30 being the Wessendorf Middle School and the 2021 ranking.
And Judge, those are the exhibits that I had objected to, the 30 and 19, I think.
And just for the record, I am trying to prove those up so that we can offer them for her objection.
I understand. It's you can lodge objection when the evidence is offered, or the exhibit's offered.
So Stacey, you've seen the public rankings for those two schools, correct?
Yes.
And those are, again, public school review records that are available to everyone. And those compare the two schools, one of which Jaden has attended and one of which Jaden will attend if this court grants our request, correct?
Correct.
And do you believe that those two rankings, with your examination of those schools and your experience with the prior school, do you believe that those are accurate and fair representations of the school rankings that we have purported in those exhibits?
Yes.
And so at this time, I would offer them to opposing and I would tender them to the court if there is no objection to those reports.
And Judge, I'll object that they're hearsay and that there's not a proper predicate that's been laid.
And Judge, they are public record. They are, I believe I have laid the proper predicate. They are, I mean, it's just public record, Judge.
And Judge, it's not any type of certified, or it's just not been authenticated, and it's hearsay.
I understand the objection, but the objection's overruled. The exhibits are admitted.
Stacey, when you were, we're going to talk a little bit just about your experience and your relationship with Carlos Ventura, which is the father of Jaden. How long were you two together?
I don't recall like year length because it was always on and off because he would cheat on me basically.
Objection, Your Honor, as to relevance and non-responsive.
Sustained.
Judge, I believe-
I don't really know.
During the time that you all were together, was Carlos ever abusive toward you?
Yes.
And hold on.
Mhm.
And in some of those instances, the police were called, correct?
Correct.
And there were charges filed.
Correct.
Objection, Your Honor, as to leading.
Sustained.
Were there criminal charges ever filed against Carlos Ventura for assaulting you?
Yes.
Were there charges ever filed for Carlos interfering with you placing an emergency call for assistance?
Yes.
Were there charges ever filed for Carlos and drug possession or drug use?
Yes.
Were those charges filed in Fort Bend County?
Yes.
And are you the alleged, or not alleged, but are you the victim in those charges who personally experienced those incidents?
Yes.
going to offer petitioners 37, petitioners 38, petitioners 39, petitioners 40, petitioners 41, petitioners 42, petitioners 43, and petitioners 44, petitioners 45, petitioners 46, petitioners 47, and petitioners 49. To opposing counsel, those are their summaries of the criminal charges that have been purported against Carlos Ventura. There are plea
Yeah,
bargain.
I would object to all of them on the basis that they are hearsay, even though they are, I know that they're not certified
They're
copies.
not certified copies?
No, they're unofficial, Judge.
Objection sustained.
Was Carlos ever convicted on any of the charges in which you were a victim?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay, lack of personal knowledge.
Judge, she was the victim.
Well, sustain
No.
at this time. Sustain at this time.
Judge, what's my time?
You have you have 23 minutes.
Okay. When you and Carlos are sharing possession of Jaden, what is your possession schedule currently? Well, what did it look like prior to the court ever being involved? How did you all share your possession of Jaden?
He would stay at his dad's during the weekends, every other weekend. And then, some days out of the week, Jaden would ask, can I stay with my dad? And that would be fine, especially because I've always had a job that in some cases it's made it easier for his grandparents to drop off Jaden at school for me. Because I've had jobs where I had to be at work at 6:30 a.m. on multiple occasions.
Okay. And so is it kind of like you all had a open possession? So if Jaden wanted to spend time with his dad, he could. When he was ready to come back home, he could. And you didn't try to restrict him in any way from possession and access, correct?
Correct. I've never not let his dad not see Jaden.
Now, has Carlos, Jaden's father, ever tried to restrict your access to Jaden?
No.
Okay. Has he ever done anything to prevent you from being able to bring Jaden back home?
No.
Okay. When Jaden spends time with his father, what have you observed to be the
Hello?
behavior? What have you observed to be the behavior and the circumstances of that visit? What happens when Jaden spends time with his dad?
Recently, I've noticed that Jaden is changing and he's starting to lie more. And his hygiene, when I get him, it's like I have to constantly, Jaden, you have to brush your teeth. Jaden, you have to wear a deo. Jaden, you have to shower. Like he's changing, and I would say becoming a little rebel, but not to the extreme. Like he's starting to be a little, just his attitude changes, and he's scared to talk to me sometimes.
Now, you and I have talked about it, and I want you to tell the court, how do you think that this came about? How do you think, or why do you think it is that Jaden has started to do these things?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Sustain.
Do you believe that Jaden's father has asked him to lie to you?
I've caught him in a lie, and his dad started the lie. So yes.
And what was that lie?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Judge, if
Sustained.
she knows, what has Jaden lied to you about?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Judge, that's not a
Response?
hearsay. What has Jaden lied to you about?
I'm
No, Ms.
sorry,
Scott,
did
what's
you
your
overrule
response to,
that?
hold on, what's your response to the hearsay objection, Ms. Scott?
Judge, that's not hearsay. It's nothing that's coming from another person. This is her own personal statement of what she knows Jaden to have lied about. That's personal experience.
And Judge, my response to that is that if
No,
Jaden
I don't need a
hasn't
response.
lied.
Objection
Okay.
sustained. Next question.
Has Jaden lied to you about where he's at when he's with his father?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation and hearsay.
Not if
Sustained.
she knows. When Jaden goes to spend time with his father, is he at his father's home?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Casey, if you, excuse me, if you know, where does Jaden stay when he's in his father's possession?
Majority of the time, he's at his grandparents' house.
And how do
And
you know that? Hold on, how do you, hold on. How do you know that?
Jaden has told me, and I have his location on his cell phone.
And is that a location that you have installed for the security of course, knowing where your child is at?
Yes.
Is that an app that's on his phone that you also share on your phone?
Yes, I share his location. Yes, ma'am.
And you have shared the screenshots of Jaden's location during his possession with his dad in petitioners 31. Do you remember providing that to me?
Yes, ma'am.
And I have provided this petitioners 31 to opposing counsel prior to this hearing as we exchange discovery exhibits, and I'm tendering it to her now for any objection so that I may offer it to the court if there is none.
31's already in evidence, according
Is
to
it?
my
Oh,
report.
I'm sorry. Okay. Well, Judge, I would ask that I be able to share. I don't know if I should. I mean, we're on a time crunch. Will the court be able to take review this exhibit if I don't share it?
Yeah, the court's going to review every exhibit that's put in evidence.
Okay, so I won't waste time on that. And so the majority of the time that Jaden has his visits with his dad, he's actually at his dad's parents' house. Is that right?
Yes. Recently, since the amicus came into play, he's been staying more at his dad's. But prior to
that, okay, sorry. Prior to that, he was always at his grandparents' house.
Yes.
Jaden also has a new little sibling that I don't want to fail to mention. Isn't that right?
Yes.
And is Jaden and his sister, are they very close?
They're 10 years apart.
I understand, but are they bonding? Are they close emotionally?
Jaden loves her to death.
And how old is she?
She is 5 months. She'll be 6 months this month, sorry.
And what has Jaden taken on as in his big brother role? What kind of things has he done?
He carries her, he plays with her. He just sits in front of her and just stares at her and plays with her.
And do you believe that Jaden has developed a really strong bond with her that would be affected if he were taken away from her?
Yes.
Has Jaden given you any inclination as to where he wants to live?
Objection, Your Honor, as to hearsay.
Sustained.
What are you asking this court to do, Stacy?
I want the court to give me primary custody of Jaden like I've always had. I've never been the perfect mother, but I've always tried to do what's in the best interest of my son.
You have always provided for Jaden, correct?
Correct.
And when you were struggling financially, you did seek help, correct?
Correct.
And even during those times, Carlos Ventura, the father, has never provided any financial assistance to you to help to care for Jaden.
Correct. I've never asked Carlos because I've known he doesn't have a stable job, but I've asked my, family members for help when I've needed it.
If the court were to grant the placement, primary care and residence with you, would you be able and willing to make sure that Jaden still has his standard visitation with his father?
Yes.
And would you also make sure that Jaden still has electronic communication with his father?
Yes.
You are not trying to in any way prohibit or restrict that communication and time with his father.
No.
In fact, you aren't even really asking this court for child support if the court were so inclined to waive it. Isn't that right?
Right.
You just want for Jaden to be home with you where he's always been.
Yes.
And that is with the exclusion of those 2 periods when you were doing what was absolutely necessary to make sure that Jaden was taken care of and that he was safe, both from COVID and from a situation where you no longer had a babysitter.
Correct.
I'll pass the witness.
Okay, Ms. Moreno, your witness.
Thank you, Judge. Ma'am, where do you currently live?
Currently live.
Yes.
Right now, I'm staying in Victoria.
And when you say you're staying there,
Me or Stacy?
I'm talking to Stacy. So when you say that you're staying there,
Hello?
Carlos, you can mute yourself.
I muted him. You may continue.
So when you say that you're staying there, that sounds temporary, is that right?
Because I've been waiting for the court hearing to see if I can, stay in this home with more space for my children. Yes.
Okay, and is that your home?
It's my husband's grandmother's home.
Okay, so you're currently married, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and you and your husband do not have a place of your own, is that right?
No.
Okay, and you are temporarily residing with his grandmother, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. You don't have any contract or lease agreement there, do you?
No.
So if his grandmother were to ask you to move out, you don't have any place to go, is that right?
Objection is speculation.
Overruled. Do you know, ma'am, if you have a place to stay if the grandmother were to kick you out?
An apartment. I mean, we would have to find an apartment.
Okay. And
But
why don't you have a place of your own right now?
because
Objection to relevance. If she has a current place to stay, I don't see why we're talking about hypotheticals.
Overruled. You may answer that, ma'am.
So why don't you have your own place to live if you have a husband and 2 children?
we just got married July 2nd. And the reason we moved to Victoria is because his job is paying him more so we can eventually get a home.
So you and your husband have been married since July 2nd, so just a little over a month?
Yeah, we got engaged August of last year, and we've been together since 2016.
Okay. And since 2016, y'all have not been able to find stable housing of your own, is that correct?
Objection to argumentative.
Staying.
Okay. Who else lives in your home other than you, your husband, and his grandmother?
So it's just us, and she has an apartment upstairs. which she's going to be staying in. She's fixing it right now, and she's going to stay in the.
Okay, so it's a house and an apartment?
It's a house with a garage, and above the garage, it's a room with a kitchen, everything.
Okay. So you stated earlier that you thought Carlos was a good dad, is that right?
A good dad, yes.
Do you believe that he loves Jaden?
Yes.
And he's been taking care of him quite often, is that correct?
Taking care of him here and there, yes. Support him financially, no.
Well, you stated that you have not had Jaden primarily since March of 2020, is that correct?
I never said that.
Well, you stated that you work in a COVID clinic, is that right?
I worked past tense, yes.
Okay, so whenever this pandemic started, which was approximately March of 2020, that's correct?
It started, yes, February. Yeah, it got serious.
Okay. At that time, you stated that you kind of gave up primary possession of
I
Jaden
never
to
gave-
Objection, hold on, objection.
Ms. Villarreal, wait for the
I'm sorry.
entire question to be asked before you give an answer. Ms. Moreno, if you can rephrase the question.
Thank you, Judge. Was it your testimony that when COVID started, you were working at a COVID clinic and you requested Mr. Ventura and his family to have Jaden primarily because you didn't want to expose him?
Stay there longer, yes. Gave him primary, no.
Well, would you agree with me that he was spending more time with Carlos and his side of the family than he was with you during that time?
Or maybe a month to 2 months, maybe.
So from that initial period in the beginning of 2020 to now, would you agree that Jaden has been with Mr. Ventura at least 50% of the time, if not more?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
From the beginning of 2020 to now, would you agree with me that Jaden has been with Mr. Ventura at least half the time?
Probably. I 2020, probably, since he stayed there, probably.
So is it your position that Mr. Ventura ought to provide child support to you and keep Jaden the majority of the time?
Objection, misstatement of the testimony.
Overruled. She's asking if you think you should receive child support if Mr. Ventura has Jaden more than 50% of the time.
And this is for 2020 only that you're asking?
Well, let's use 2020 as an example. You testified that Mr. Ventura has never paid you child support and that you're asking for all these years of back child support. But when,
Objection again to misstatement, because I never said that.
Sustained.
in the year 2020, when Mr. Ventura had Jaden more than half of the time, do you believe that are you requesting child support for that time frame?
I mean, it would be from the beginning, from when Jaden was born. Since Jaden was in pre-K, I've always.
Objection, unresponsive, Judge.
Sustained.
Is it your position that you're owed child support for all the months in the year 2020?
Your Honor, I'm going to object simply because I don't think that's really relevant to this proceeding today.
Sustained.
Retroactive child support on final, but this
That's something we will deal with on final. I agree. Objection to relevance is sustained.
Thank you, Judge. So, Judge, give me 1 second. I need to do something with this dog. Hold on.
totally understandable.
I think we should swear the dog in.
Hey, Your Honor, I'm going to stay in the room. I'm just going to roll over to my desktop to check some emails while the second.
Okay. So, ma'am, you stated that this proceeding began when Mr. Ventura enrolled the child in Medicaid. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
And do you know approximately the date and year, the year that that occurred, or the month and
What occurred?
that the Medicaid started or was requested?
I don't recall.
Was it this year or last year?
It was 2015,
Objection, Judge.
I'm not asking you.
All right, hold on just one second. Mr. Ventura, that's about the fourth time that's happened. It's not your turn to talk yet. When it's your turn to talk, you're going to get questions and you're going to be able to tell the court anything you want to tell the court. But I'm getting impatient with you continuing to interrupt these proceedings. We're on a clock. The court has a very limited amount of time to give these lawyers today, and you're interrupting them repeatedly. I want you to stop doing that. Just stay muted until it's your turn to talk. You may continue, Ms. Moreno.
Thank you, Judge. Ma'am, do you recall if that was several years ago when the issue with the Medicaid arose, or was it recently?
And hold on, I would object because it's repetitive. She stated initially she did not recall.
Sustained.
Okay, so ma'am, prior to Mr. Ventura requesting Medicaid, what health insurance did you have your son on?
When he was younger, I had him on Medicaid.
Okay, and at some point, did that coverage lapse?
You broke out. I'm sorry.
At the time that Mr. Ventura was applying for health insurance for your son, did your son already have health insurance?
No.
Okay. I want to ask you about when you stated that you were together with Mr. Ventura. How old was Jaden when y'all stopped living together or broke up?
I want to say I lived with him when Jaden was a couple of months, maybe 7 months old. And it was on and off. It wasn't really a time frame.
So is it fair to say that you kind of, throughout Jaden's life, you've been on and off with Mr. Ventura, maybe living with him at times?
At the beginning, I lived with him months after Jaden was born. But he was never really living at he would live at the house and then he would move in with his other baby's mom. So he moved.
So did y'all have a house together?
No, it was at his parents', the one he lives at now.
So you lived at the house that Mr. Ventura lives in right now, correct? And you would live there sometimes, but you're not sure when?
So I lived physically there maybe about 6 months.
Since you've known Mr. Ventura, or how often would you live there?
When Jaden was little, I lived there and then I moved out and I never went back.
Okay, so you've never lived with Mr. Ventura since Jaden was 6 or 7 months old?
He hit me in 2011.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Sustained.
I'm trying to recall. So,
Ma'am, just answer the question that's asked. Next question, Ms. Moreno.
Okay. So prior to you, when you moved out of Mr. Ventura's house when Jaden was 6 or 7 months old, where did you live after that?
at 211 Douglas Street,
Okay, and whose house is that?
my mother's.
Okay, and how long did you live there?
I've majority of Jaden's life, only when I moved to Wisconsin was the only time.
Okay, so when did you move to Wisconsin?
July of 2016.
July of 2016?
Yeah.
And you said you moved to Wisconsin for work?
Yes.
Okay, what kind of work were you doing in Wisconsin?
Objection or relevance?
Judge, they brought
What's
it
the
up.
relevance? What's the relevance, Ms. Moreno?
Well, Judge, I'm just trying to establish her timeframes and where she's lived, and I don't think that she has ever provided any stability. She stated it was necessary to move to Wisconsin, but that's what I'm trying to ask. Was it really necessary?
All right, objections overruled. You may answer that, ma'am. Where did you work in Wisconsin?
I worked for a company called Quad Graphics.
And what were you doing there?
I was an operator.
Okay. And at that time that you decided to move to Wisconsin, would you get that's pretty far away, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and did you take Jaden with you initially?
Yes.
And how long was Jaden in Wisconsin with you?
Till November of that year.
So from July to November.
Yes.
Okay. Had you looked for any jobs in Texas?
That were high paying like that one? No, I never found one.
Okay. And so how long did you end up staying in Wisconsin? Just, you said you went there in July. When did you come back?
The end, when my contract ended, which was March, the beginning of April, so March. The last day of March, I came back.
Okay, so from November of 2016 to March of 2017, how many times did you see Jaden?
I saw him in December, and I saw him December and February because I needed to see him, so I flew back to spend time with him.
So from November 2016 to March of 2017, you saw him 2 times.
For like 2 weeks each time.
And during that time frame from November of 2016 to March of 2017, you stated that you had asked Mr. Ventura to take Jaden during that time. Is that correct?
Objection,
more-
asked and answered.
Sustained.
Okay. And when you were living in Wisconsin, you were living with, did you say your sister and her husband?
My sister-in-law
Your
and her
sister-
kid.
And how old was Jaden during that time?
I want to say 7. I can't recall. I can't even do the math right now, but I want to say like 7.
Did you enroll him in school in Wisconsin?
Yes, I did.
So he attended school in Wisconsin from August until November, is that correct?
Yes.
And then during that semester, you sent him back to Fort Bend.
During the Thanksgiving break, yes.
Okay. Did you pay any child support to Mr. Ventura during the time that Jaden was with him from November to March of 2017?
No, but I provided him with all the clothes that he had and his school supplies that I had already gotten him.
Okay. You stated that you track Jaden with a tracker on his iPhone, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and the iPhone tracks, the application tracks the phone, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if Jaden were to set his phone down and go to a restaurant, that doesn't necessarily mean that Jaden's with the phone, does it?
No, but knowing Jaden always had,
Your Honor, non-responsive.
Sustained after no.
Okay. You stated that if Carlos is primary, it won't be like it's always been. Is that what you stated earlier?
When
Hold on, objection. I think that's a
I can
misstatement.
I can
of the
rephrase.
testimony.
I
All right,
can
you
rephrase.
rephrase, please.
Okay. You're aware that Jaden attended school last semester, is that correct?
yeah. Wait, what? I'm sorry.
Did Jaden attend school last semester?
Attend school last semester? Yes.
Okay, and how did he do that?
In person.
In person. And what school did he go to?
Hutchinson Elementary.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Hutchinson Elementary.
Hutchinson. And that's in Lamar Consolidated, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you stated that you wanted to have primary of Jaden, is that right? The right to designate the primary residence, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and in doing so, you're wanting to change Jaden from Lamar Consolidated to another district out of county, is that right?
Yes.
What grade is Jaden in?
He's going to 6th grade.
Okay. I think you may have stated that you don't want Jaden taken away from his sibling. Is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay, you do realize that even if Mr. Ventura had the primary right to designate, or the exclusive right to designate Jaden's primary residence, that he wouldn't necessarily be taken away from you or the rest of your family. You understand that?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled. You may answer that, ma'am.
I'm not sure.
Do you currently see Jaden per our temporary order?
Yes.
And how often do you see him?
The weeks that I have them.
So give me an example what the schedule is like.
So I get him on a Sunday at 6:30 and I have him all week till the next Sunday. I drop him off. He has to be at his dad's house at 6:30 p.m.
Okay. And if Jaden were to instead come to your house on the 1st, 3rd, and 5th weekends of the month, would he be able to visit with you and his sibling?
He wouldn't develop the relationship. The relationship he has with us would change because he wouldn't see his little sister grow up on a daily basis. And he's grown attached to her. So I believe it would change.
But would you agree with me that he doesn't see her on a daily basis now, correct?
But he sees her for 5 days, 6 full days at a time. So that would change.
Okay. How far away, if you know, is your house you said in Victoria, correct?
Correct.
How long does it take you to drive from your house to Mr. Ventura's house?
It's an hour and a half.
Okay. So do you believe that if you were to take Jaden to Victoria, that Mr. Ventura would be able to exercise his visits on Thursday evening?
No.
What time does that school in Victoria dismiss for the day?
3:45.
Okay, so I think it's fair to say that Thursday visits would be probably off the table. Is that right?
Correct.
Also, do you know if that residence where you're at is more than 100 miles from Mr. Ventura's residence?
It's 97, but they're basing it off as 100 miles.
Okay, so when you're talking about standard possession, are you talking in terms of the schedule for over 100 miles?
I'm not sure
Okay,
how that works. So
I got confused by that answer because Victoria is really close to 100 miles. It's like right on it. So is it 97 miles or is it 100 miles? Do you know, ma'am?
Last time I checked, it was 97, 98 miles.
Mhm. And did I already ask you where you're currently working?
No, you did not.
Okay, where do you currently work?
I'm not working. I'm just staying home.
Okay, so why did you decide to move almost 100 miles away from the person that you've been co-parenting with for so long?
Due to my husband finding a better paying job, and that would allow me to stay home with our newborn and take care of Jaden as well.
Okay. Would you agree, since that it was your choice to move far away, that you would agree to do the transportation for exchanges of Jaden between you and Mr. Ventura?
Like drop off and pick up
Yes.
every weekend, or
Yes, so when Jaden needs to come see his dad or go back and forth, would you agree, since you're not working and you're the one who chose to move far away, to help with that?
if I had no other option, then yes.
Okay, do you have a vehicle?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Judge, I'll pass the witness.
Just a
Mr.
few
Gray, your
questions.
witness.
Thank you. Now, Stacy, I've been to the home in Victoria, is that correct?
Yes.
Would you agree with me of the three possibility of homes, the home that you lived in Richmond, Texas, and the home that Mr. Ventura lives in Richmond, Texas, and the Victoria home? If you had a choice of living in any of those homes, which home would that be?
The one in Victoria.
No, it's got its own property. It's got about an acre. Is that correct?
Oh, I think maybe an acre, a little bit more than an acre. It has a pond.
Big den for the family to have entertainment. Is that correct? And
Yes.
also, your indication, I believe you testified that the grandmother who resides there would be living in what we call similar to a mother-in-law home type villa.
Yes.
There's also a lake on the property, if I remember correctly. Is that correct?
We call it a huge pond, but
All right. And the school that the boy would go to in Victoria, Texas, that's approximately 3 to 5 miles away from that residence.
yes.
Have you gone to that school already and experienced with children going into 6th grade?
Not yet, because I've been waiting for this hearing to start everything. I didn't want to make any decisions until I.
You had a testimony today that the reason why this hearing is occurring now and not before was due to many different reasons, including COVID. Is that your understanding?
Can you repeat that?
You were trying to get this done months ago, but due to many different things,
Yes.
including COVID, it's been delayed until this time. Is that correct?
Yes.
I've met with the boy in your care. To your understanding, is that correct?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, I've met the boy at his father's home. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, I heard you testify about the father's home. Is it your testimony today that the father does not own that home?
Correct.
Okay, who owns that home?
That's his parents' house.
And his parents don't presently reside there themselves. Is that correct?
Correct. They own another home.
That's right. And how far away is that home from the home that the respondent lives
Not even 2 minutes away, I would say.
in? And it's your testimony today, based upon what you showed this court and admitted to evidence already, that your testimony is that the child spends more, at least before I got involved, more time with grandma and granddad on dad's side than with actually dad.
Yes.
And it's your testimony that if the child was allowed to speak to Judge Bell or the presiding judge, that child would.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay as to what the child would say.
Calls for opinion, Your Honor.
Objection sustained.
Are you asking this court to meet your son?
Yes.
And when we spoke about possible plans for the future, it was your belief at that time that you and your present husband would be doing the transportating of the child to the dad so that he could in fact have his periods of possession.
Yes.
And now we talk about 97 miles away from dad's house versus 100 miles. Is it your agreement, let's say, that you understand due to the distance that he'd be getting every spring break and 42 days in the summer versus every alternating spring break and only 30 days in the summer? Is that correct?
Correct.
You're asking this court to award the gentleman, if you're awarded primary conservatorship, an expanded SP or standard possession order for beyond 100 miles.
Correct.
And did I hear you correctly state that you're ambivalent, you don't really care one way or the other, should this court impose a child support obligation on the father at this time?
Correct.
And you're asking to enroll the child into the school of your choice in Victoria County, Texas?
Correct.
And you're asking to be limited from moving away from either Victoria County, Texas and or Fort Bend County, Texas. Is that your request? I pass the witness.
Okay, Ms. Scott, any redirect? And
No.
just for the lawyers to know, Ms. Scott, you have 13 minutes. Ms. Moreno, you have 20 minutes. And Mr. Gray, you still have 26 minutes.
I have no questions.
All right, Ms. Scott, you may call your next witness. I'm sorry. Ms. Moreno, do you have any additional questions after Ms. Gray's questions of this witness?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Scott, you may call your next witness.
I have no other witnesses, Judge.
All right, movement rest.
Yeah, to move it rest.
All right, Ms. Moreno, you may call your first witness.
And Judge, I'll call my client, Mr. Ventura. Mr. Ventura, now you can unmute yourself.
All right, Ms. Villarreal, I'm going to mute you now, okay? Because I don't, it's Mr. Ventura's time to talk.
Okay, Mr.
May I proceed?
Ventura.
How are you? And I apologize, Judge, for the microphone issue.
No problem, Mr. Ventura. I know this is probably everybody's first time in court. The court's not upset with anyone. I just wanted to make sure we follow the rules because it makes the case go a little quicker. All right, Ms. Moreno, you may proceed.
Okay, Mr. Ventura, just answer the questions I asked, okay? So can you tell me, since Jaden was born, basically what the living arrangements were between you and Ms. Villarreal? Jaden?
Well, I mean, as soon as he was born, I was there in the hospital. I saw him born. I took her home from the hospital and we came to my house because, well, obviously my mom and my dad were nice enough to let her stay here. And, the area that she lived in is known to have drugs, guns,
Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. My question was, where did y'all live and when, the dates?
Oh, definitely since the moment he was born, he was here. So I want to say from August 30th, 2010 till about a few months. I want to say 2-3 months. And then she decided to move, like maybe when he was around 3 years old.
Okay, so then after that, there was a period where Ms. Villarreal relocated to Wisconsin for work. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I was.
So
Everybody-
hold on. So yes, you remember. So then my next question is, at some point, did she ask you to take care of Jaden instead of having him in Wisconsin?
Well, she took off with him and she didn't tell anybody about it. So then by the time I found out, he started school over there. But then I guess it got kind of hard for her because she was always working or whatever. So she told me to buy him a plane ticket, which I do have proof of the plane ticket. And I brought my son by myself here on the plane by himself.
Okay,
And-
so after he came on the plane by himself, how long did he live exclusively with you?
My girlfriend helped me with him until, I want to say throughout his whole school year. She came back sometime in April, May, something around that time. But I had already enrolled him in a good school, which was Hutchinson, or else he would have
Okay,
gone to a tech school.
Okay, so timeframes. I'm talking about March of 2017. In 2017, where did he go to school when he came to live with you?
When he came to live with me, he went to Hutchinson Elementary.
Okay, and is it fair to say that he's, since 2017 till currently, he has attended Hutchinson Elementary that whole time?
The whole time, I was responsible for signing him up. Good grades, everything. He was always at that school.
Okay, and so now, is it the case that you've enrolled him at Wessendorf
Right. And then I
And
enrolled him at,
Is Wessendorf the school that he would go to based on his address?
yes, because that's exactly where he's zoned to.
Okay,
mean-
and so when he goes from Hutchinson to Wessendorf, that's the normal course of things based on where his address is, correct?
Right.
So does he have little friends that would be going also from Hutchinson to Wessendorf?
All of them. I mean, I've had parents tell me that they would be able to testify
Objection to relevance
Sustained.
as well as
Okay.
hearsay.
So I know Ms. Villarreal stated that you had also enrolled Jaden in some sports, is that right?
soccer, basketball, jiu-jitsu. I mean, I paid for it all. I mean,
Okay, so when did he play soccer?
he played soccer in 2016 and no, he played basketball 2016, soccer 2017, 18. And then because of the COVID, he didn't play. And then in jiu-jitsu, he was in 2020.
Okay, so whenever he was involved in those sports, who was primarily responsible for taking him to participate?
I mean, me and my girlfriend would. She would take them. I mean, his mom would go to an occasional game, but even on that texting app, that they made us download, I would ask her, "Can you please take him to jiu-jitsu?" And she would always find an excuse to say no, just like everything else.
Is it true that you were the one to try and put Carlos on Medicaid around the time that this case was initiated?
All right, hold on, Ms.
Yeah.
Moreno, since we're transitioning to a new topic, give me 1 second. I had a note brought into me that there's a deposition issue, and it's just going to take me 1 second to weigh in on that. So let me bring these lawyers in, and we're going to go off the record for 1 second. Let me deal with this just 1 second. I'll tell you what, on the hearing that I'm in, if y'all want a 5-minute break, y'all can have a 5-minute break. We'll be off the record for 5 minutes. I'm going to bring these parties into a breakout room and take care of them real quick. All right, on the, let's see, I have Ms. Pickett, Mr. Slate, and who else is
Yes.
involved in this?
Just the clients.
Okay, let me put you on a breakout room because I don't know what we're going to discuss, and then we'll take care of the issue in there. All right, I'm sorry about that. I'm back and ready to go. Again, Miss Moreno, I'm going to subtract that off your time, so don't worry about that. All right, court's back on the record on the Villarreal and Ventura matter. Miss Moreno, you may proceed.
Okay, so, Mr. Ventura, I was asking you about when you enrolled your son on Medicaid, okay? When did you go to do the Medicaid application?
If I'm not mistaken, I did it a little bit after Stacy brought him over to me.
Okay,
So I'm
and
gonna say,
when you say brought him over to me, what do you mean by that?
like whenever she flew him from Wisconsin to Texas, he had a lot of cavities in his mouth. So I took him to KRB dentistry,
Mhm.
and I couldn't pay out of pocket. So they told me to apply for Medicaid. And that's the reason why I was able to get Medicaid for him, because his teeth were kind of messed up. So I took care of all of that. I took him to his doctor's checkup, and I ended up getting him his glasses because he couldn't see. So that's
Okay.
the only reason why I got the Medicaid.
So is it fair to say you got Medicaid in around November of 2016 then?
I want to say around that time frame, yeah, because it's he's been on Medicaid for a while now.
Okay, so he's been on Medicaid for several years. And during that time, you stated you did what you said, fillings, glasses, and who takes them to the doctor typically for checkups and things like that?
If you go back and look at the records, most of the times it's always been me. There's even been instances where my girlfriend has taken him to the doctor and she signed up in the sheet.
Okay. As far as participating in his school at Hutchinson, what type of things have you done, from like the time you enrolled him in 2016 to now? What are the type of things you've done at the school where he attends?
Well, it ranges everything from every assembly that he had, synergy, assemblies where they win prizes. I even dressed him up as Barack Obama, and we practiced speech after speech at home until he finally got it right. And he was also Albert Einstein. With a bunch of his classmates, we even went to Main Event to go eat. I mean, there's so much that I've done with them that, a lot of the teachers actually got to know me and my girlfriend because we were always present.
Miss Moreno, you're muted.
Sorry, Judge. Judge, can I publish the photographs that were already admitted? I think they were all admitted, my exhibits.
They were, and you may.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen and I want you to tell me just a real brief description of what's going on in these photos. Oops, that's not it. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Okay, who's in this picture?
It was my uncle's birthday, which was the guy that's like in the middle. My grandpa's right next to Jaden, and that's my other uncle. We barbecued and we cooked the tomahawk steaks for his birthday. Jaden helped me out, and Stacy might has said that, I spend a lot of time there, but as a family that we all grew up together, we always spend as much time together as we can because we're always cooking, we're always doing things, and that is just one of many pictures of us feasting together as a family.
And whose house is this at?
This is actually my mother's house because my mother owns 3 homes. So she owns one here where I live at that she gifted me so that I could be with my kid here because I have 2 other daughters. And then she has one next door. And then that house that's in that picture is her house in Richmond.
So when Ms. Villarreal states that there was a tracker that shows that Jaden was at your mom's house, is this the house that she would be referring to as your mom's house?
I mean, if it is, if there's a tracker that I would have known of, I just know that she has this stuff on. And there's times that he gets scared and he's like, I'm gonna just leave my phone here. I'm gonna put my phone here and he'll forget it. And then she will call him asking him, where were you? Who are you with? What are you doing? You know, things like that in order to intimidate him to get him to tell something, you
Okay,
know.
so I'm going to show you now respondents exhibit number 3. Do you know when this picture was taken?
Yes, I had a political convention while I was doing my bachelor's here at the University of Houston downtown. I got invited to write a paper for a Politicon, and I took my son and my dad over to California so that they could witness California and that I could attend my meeting and that I had to write for a paper that I had to do.
Okay, so what was the date of this photo approximately?
I I want to say around it was for sure July 2017, around that time. I don't know the exact date, but it was in July 2017.
Okay, would this have been, was his mother still residing in Wisconsin at this time, or had she already returned?
I think she had already returned, but I mean, she really didn't, say anything in regards to him going or not. I mean, I just kind of said, let's go. And he said he was all right with it. She was all right with it. And we went.
And how long were you there? Do you recall?
I was only allowed to be there for a week because I was on a probation. I was on a 5-year probation, which I passed every test and I did everything that I was needed to.
Okay.
So
now this photograph, where was this taken? Is this
this-
Jaden, first of all?
yeah, that's Jaden at the Wax Museum with Michael Jackson, wax figure, which is his favorite artist.
And are these some of the things that y'all did together in California on your vacation?
Oh, we swam a lot. We different places to eat. Went downtown LA. We went to Venice Beach. Here we're taking pictures together as one of the disciples and stuff like that because we're close to God and whatnot.
So this you and Jaden together in California on vacation?
Yeah, and that's my dad right there in that black dress.
Okay, and now in the next photograph,
Judge, I would object to cumulative. And
in this next photograph, who's in this picture?
That's me and my son. I'm pretty sure he's around the age of 3.5. That's just goes to prove to you that I was with them even during that age, and we were at Chuck E. Cheese.
Okay, and do you often take your son to do activities like Chuck E. Cheese or vacation?
Yeah, Chuck E. Cheese, anywhere that he might please. I mean, he's interested into so many things that it's just so many things for us to do.
So is this a picture of Jaden at your current home?
Yeah, that's a picture of Jaden right when he started walking right outside my current home that we live at.
Okay. And respondents exhibit number 8 is, how old was Jaden in this photo?
I want to say about 9 months, maybe. He still couldn't walk. If I'm not mistaken, there's some gifts there and everything. I'm wrapping him up, just spending time with him as an 18-year-old.
Okay, and is this you in the photo?
Yes, that's me. I just had a blonde patch in my hair at the moment.
Okay, and what are you doing with Jaden?
In that picture?
Yes.
I believe that I'm drying him off, or I'm trying to put something on him, like a pair of clothing, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. And I'm going to skip a couple of these. Can you tell me about exhibit R10? Is Jaden in this photograph?
Yeah, Jaden will be to your far right. He's going to be right next to my mother. He's right next to my girlfriend, actually. She's the one in the cheetah stripe thing.
And then are these Jaden's relatives on your side of the family in the photo?
The ones towards the right yard and then the ones on the left side, they're just a bunch of friends from my school because we were celebrating actually. We were celebrating my I think my graduation or something. No, it had something to do with Halloween or something, but we just celebrated and we played games like Jenga and stuff like that. But it was just a celebration that we had.
Okay, and whose house is this at?
This is actually going to be at my mom's house.
Okay. And these are more pictures of you just spending time with Jaden, correct?
Yeah, and that would have been here exactly at the house that I live at.
And this is a picture of you and your girlfriend and Jaden together, correct?
Yeah, at a swimming pool, correct.
Okay, do you believe that Jaden and your living girlfriend have an appropriate relationship?
I would say that it's beyond perfect. I mean, there's been plenty of times where, he'll cry to her and talk to her about things like anything related to school because she works at a school. So for Stacy to say that, oh, I got him all the school supplies when she works at a school, she normally helps me out with.
Objection, Judge, non-responsive.
Okay. And this photograph, is that Jaden hugging you?
Yeah, that's him hugging me after we had actually split up a piece of cake from my dad for his birthday.
Okay, and whose house is this photograph taken at?
That's gonna be at my father.
Oh, I think we lost him. Did we lose him?
No, he's there.
Oh,
Ms. Miranda, you have 4 minutes.
okay. So, Mr. Ventura, is it the situation that you are asking this court to award you the exclusive right to determine your son's primary residence?
Yes, primary residence, and I would also like to deal with his school stuff
Okay,
because
so historically, who has handled all of your son's school needs?
me, since the moment that I signed him up for school and anything else, I have always been responsible. All my signatures should be on the school reports, from anything from that to dental, medical, glasses. I've always been the one that's responsible to being able to take that, to
Okay.
take them to it.
Okay, and as far as as far as Victoria County goes, does Jaden have any friends or any other relatives that live in Victoria County other than his mom and his sister?
Not that
Objection, speculation.
not that I know of. The only person that I know that I haven't even met really is Stacy's boyfriend, and I guess her boyfriend's dad. I've never met them. I've never talked to them, and obviously he's grown up. We have pictures of him growing up here. All he knows is his friends that live around here, and he's already missed orientation for Westendorf because his mom didn't want to take him. And the thing is, it's like, I just want to make sure
Objection,
that
non-responsive.
Sustained.
Okay, so you believe that maintaining Jaden in the same school district on the same track is in his best interest at this time?
yes, it's in his best interest in his time, because while I study for law school right now, he studies with me. And then my girlfriend is also studying, and we all work together in order for him to get good grades.
And so
And
you are home and able to provide transportation to and from school, is that correct?
Correct.
And in the event that the court does award Ms. Villarreal exclusive right on primary residence, are you asking that she be responsible for transportation for the exchanges?
Yes, because I mean, the thing is, I mean, to drive all the way
Objection,
out there.
non-responsive.
Sustained after yes.
Yes.
Okay. Judge, I'll pass the witness.
Okay, Ms. Scott?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Ventura, isn't it true that when Jaden was born, you all did not move back immediately to your house, as you earlier stated?
Okay. Is it true that we did not come back to my house?
Yes, when Jaden was born, you stated you all moved back to your house, but that's not true, is it?
I'm pretty sure it is true. I mean, unless there's proof otherwise, I just remember her living here. Yes. We even accommodated a new room for her to stay here.
Mr. Ventura,
Mr. Ventura, can you keep the phone kind of where we can see your face? Because it's important for the lawyers to be able to see you. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, because I couldn't hear right. But I got you.
Ms. Scott, you may continue.
thank you, sorry. Mr. Ventura, isn't it true that when Stacy first had Jaden, she was 16 and she actually went back to live with her brother because those were her guardians?
What, her brother?
Yes.
Well, from what I remember, they were having issues and she would move back and forth.
Objection, non-responsive.
Sustained.
Isn't it true she lived with her brother when she gave birth to your son?
I would say for a month or two, maybe yes, before she came here. Yeah.
And when you indicated that you were taking Jaden to all of his doctor's appointments and his dentist appointments, you're talking about the 4 months that you had him once he moved back from Wisconsin, correct?
No, actually, ever since he got here from Wisconsin, I've kept up with most of his appointments, whether it be dental or anything else. I was the one taking him.
So are you saying, Mr. Ventura, that his mother has not taken him to a doctor or a dentist appointment?
Maybe in the past, yes.
Okay,
Whenever
hold on, Mr. Ventura. So you acknowledge that his mother also takes him to doctors and dentist appointments, correct?
Yes, but
Okay. Hold on, Mr. Ventura. It's a yes or a no question. So if you can just answer it with a yes or a no, we can move along, okay?
well, yeah, well, there wouldn't be a lot of substance, but I guess yes, whenever he was a baby, yes, she did take him. I'll do that. I'll say that.
Mr. Ventura, you talked about one of your pictures in which you were in California and you stated you were on 5 years probation. Is that right?
Correct.
And what were you on probation for?
Let's see. I was on probation for.
Is that your felony possession of cocaine in 2014?
It was a possession of a controlled substance, yes, in which I was allowed to do everything because I did everything the way I was supposed to.
Okay, that was your felony possession of cocaine and a
Right.
felony court in 2014, correct?
That was right. Way 2014, way before Stacy decided to send Jaden over. Yes.
Objection, non-responsive.
Sustained, other than yes.
And Judge, I would reoffer P43,
Ventura,
which
get
is
your video up and running. There we go.
There we
I'm
go.
sorry, Ms. Scott. Go ahead.
I would reoffer P43 and P47, which encompass the probation for the felony possession of a controlled substance.
Well, any objection, Ms. Marino?
Judge, I have the same objections as I did then.
Yeah, I know he opened the door with his testimony and you got that in. So that I've heard the testimony, but the exhibits are still hearsay. They're not certified copies. So the objection's still sustained.
Understood, Judge. Mr. Ventura, you have had some other criminal matters happen in your background, correct?
Okay. Is this relevant to anything that has to do with my son?
Objection, non-responsive.
Sir, and just answer the question that's asked.
Okay.
You do have some other criminal charges in your background, correct?
Correct.
And several of those charges are in regard to you abusing Stacy, correct?
Okay. Yeah, correct. You could say that.
And you actually have some convictions for quite a few of those charges, correct?
Convictions, I don't know if they're convictions, if they're deferred, but if that's deferred as a conviction, then I'd take that. Because on all my cases, I served as deferred.
Objection. Hold on, Mr. Ventura.
Sustained.
Your Honor, I'll object just saying that it calls for legal conclusion because he stated he's not sure.
The question's been answered. Next question, Ms. Scott.
And in your photograph, which is marked respondents 46, it stated that you took Jaden to jujitsu. I believe that's the class that you enrolled him in last year.
Correct.
And you did so at a time where obviously there was no vaccine for COVID, and Jaden, even if there were a vaccine, was too young to get a vaccine, correct?
Objection as to relevance, and it calls for speculation.
What's the relevance, Ms. Scott?
Judge, it shows his care, concern during his possession of the child when there was a national pandemic.
Okay, objections overruled.
Mr. Ventura, you took Jaden to jujitsu classes last year while the COVID pandemic was still going on, and he was not able to be vaccinated at that time, correct?
Well, obviously he wouldn't have been vaccinated till he was 12 because there is no vaccination for anybody under 12. I know
So is
that
it true, hold on, so is it true, Mr. Ventura, that you enrolled Jaden in jujitsu at a time last year when there was a national pandemic going on?
I wasn't aware that there were any restrictions.
Objection, non-responsive.
Sustained.
Mr. Ventura, thank you. Mr. Ventura, did you enroll and attend jujitsu classes with your son last year when there was a national pandemic going on?
Yeah, sure, I did. Sure.
You also have entered exhibit R52, R78, and those are pictures of a Christmas program that you attended with Jaden, correct?
For what?
They are pictures of a Christmas program that you attended with Jaden.
Was this at school?
I believe it is at school, but I don't want to guess. Those are your pictures. Do you remember your pictures, R52 and R50 or R78?
May I see those pictures,
Yes.
please?
Yes, one moment. Judge, may I have permission to publish?
You may.
All right. Okay, I'm about to share my screen and you will be able to see. Let me see, share. Okay, do you see that picture, Mr. Ventura?
Yeah, I see that picture, and his mother was also present at that picture.
Okay,
So
now, hold on,
I-
hold on, Mr. Ventura. I haven't asked you a question. Thank you. That was going to be my question, and you've already answered it. If we could look at R60, this is also a picture of young Jaden, and you listed it as the last day of 4th grade. Do you see this
no.
picture?
Yeah, that was a typo. That was supposed to be the last grade of 5th grade, but it was a typo. But if you want to go ahead and use that, say it. I know that was the last year of 5th grade, so that was a typo on my behalf. I'm sorry for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you also acknowledging that the typo on R70, are you acknowledging also that this is a typo?
Yeah, that probably could be a typo, but seems to be 4th grade, 3rd grade. I mean, I just have so many on my Dropbox that I might have just wrote a typo, but either way, I mean, does this have to do with COVID as well?
Objection and non-responsive.
Sustained.
Why is it, Mr. Ventura, that you've never provided financial means to take care of your son?
Everything that I have in my home, I've actually managed to buy for him. He has everything he needs here. I mean, I don't know what it is that I have not gotten for him. I mean, he has clothes, he has food.
Objection, non-responsive.
Sustained.
my-
3 minutes, Ms. Scott.
Okay,
I think I answered that one pretty
hold on. Mr. Ventura, wait for my question, please. The basketball program that Jaden attends, are you a coach on that basketball team?
In this 2016, I was an assistant head coach. Yes, I was.
And Miss Stacy also attended some of those games, correct?
I'm not sure if she did or not. I was on the coach, I was on the field coaching. And every time that I would leave with my son,
Objection, non-responsive.
Sustained after I don't know.
I'm responding to the question.
Objection to
saying-
sidebar comments.
Sustained.
I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Gray, your witness.
Just a few questions, sir. You indicated earlier, sir, that you had satisfied some form of deferred adjudication. Is that my understanding of what you testified to?
That I had served deferred adjudication.
That's correct, sir. Did I hear you say that earlier? You served some form of deferred adjudication?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what was that regards to?
Well, it depends. When I got my felony, it was a deferred for a felony for a controlled substance.
Okay.
Then after that, I finished that, and then I don't know if it was another deferred on something else, but they extended my probation from 4 to another 6 months.
Okay.
I was tested regularly. I was passed every drug test, and you could go look at it at the place. I've never failed that. Besides that, not that I know of, I didn't get into any trouble. I mean, there were some cases that were dropped or whatnot, but community service hours were done. I did, I want to say about 3-4 classes a week sometimes, while I was still in college, while I was still taking care of my son, and I still managed to graduate. So, I mean, I've had a heck of a challenge to get here, but that's not to say that I couldn't be a good father because of that.
Well, to give mom credit, I don't believe she indicated you were a bad father, sir. I think she testified she thought you were a good dad. Is that my understanding?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying in general.
A bad mom. Do you think Miss Villarreal is a bad mom?
Oh no, I've never talked ill of her until this day. I still haven't, and she's still attacking me.
Now, going back to the deferred adjudication, there has been mention by Stacy that you were charged at one point with assaulting her. Is that what the deferred adjudication? Is that another form of deferred adjudication that you had to satisfy?
Oh, for the family violence, was it? Yes, they gave me, I think it was 1.5 years, and I completed that as well. I took domestic violence classes. I might have even written a letter to her explaining, I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for that. I mean, for her to say that all of a sudden we became enemies.
Yes, sir. I was just trying to clear up what forms of deferred adjudication that you had completely satisfied, but you satisfied them all. Is that correct?
I mean, with doing all of that, yes. I mean, because
just so we get on the record, you satisfy the terms of your deferred adjudications, and one of those happened to be an assault on a family member. Is that my understanding?
Yes, I guess that's correct.
Have you had a chance to? Have you reached out to Miss Brielle's new husband since they've begun dating?
He texted me once, but then she's,
Objection to non-responsive after that.
Sustained.
They didn't answer the calls.
Hold on, wait for the next question.
Okay.
Mr. Ventura, when you hear your attorney, Ms. Moreno, objects, probably best you quiet down. She's trying to assist you. Okay.
Okay. I couldn't.
All right.
Yeah.
So you said he reached out to you, and did you reach back to him via text?
Yeah, there was plenty of times that we might have texted. Yes.
And do you have any personal knowledge of him being a bad person or a good person?
I don't have enough information to tell you that because I've never had a conversation of that matter with him.
Have you ever tried to have a conversation?
Huh?
Have you ever tried to have a conversation?
I mean, I've tried, but I mean, chances are either, he goes inside or he doesn't come out.
Objection.
Hold on. What's the objection?
Non-responsive, Judge. The question was, have you ever tried?
Sustained.
Have you ever researched any of the schools in Victoria, Texas, Mr. Ventura?
Have I ever searched any schools in Victoria, Texas?
Have you ever gone there and researched and looked at the place?
I mean, yeah, I looked at the place. I mean, there's plenty of nice schools all over the place here in Victoria. The only one thing that I find kind of offensive in my view was when you looked at my house compared to somebody else's house. You said that my house was smaller, theirs was bigger. And I find that kind of weird because I feel like I can raise my son.
Non-responsive.
Sustained.
Sir, you didn't hear me make any complaints about your house. Is that correct?
Well, Compared to the other one,
I like
it's
your house.
small.
Your house is fun. Your house is smaller than the one in Victoria, but it's a nice house. That being said, you also indicated, well, there's been allegations you haven't been able to work. Are you not working right now, sir?
Yeah, I'm not working because I'm studying for the LSAT. I am recovering from 2 surgeries, and I have a herniated disc after a car accident and COVID complications that I had.
And when was the last job that you had, sir?
The last job that I had was working at a grocery store where I caught COVID.
Gotcha. And was that in 2020?
That was in 2020. I would probably still be working now.
But for the car accident.
I also got into a car accident. It just a series of bad luck.
Okay. Not your fault. Is that correct?
Not my fault.
Okay. Now, prior to the grocery store job, where did you work before that and when?
I've worked. I've tried my best to work at construction with my uncle. I've actually worked at Fiesta. I worked at Kroger. I worked in several little spots where you can say that might not be a complete job, but anything that I can do for my kids is I can. I have 3 kids, and I still
Great. That was my
maintain.
next question. You have 2 other children you mentioned. Are those your children, biological children?
Yes, they're my biological children, and I still
And
maintain it.
where are those children now, sir?
They live in Katy with their mom, and I see them every weekend. They get along super well with my son because they weren't allowed to see my kid because Stacy wouldn't let my kid.
Objection, non-responsive, Your Honor. Okay.
And how old are these 2 other
You have
children? I'm sorry, how old are the 2 other children you have, sir?
My daughter's 10 years old and my other one's 9.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, I'll pass the witness.
But, Ms. Moreno, you're out of time. Ms. Scott, you're out of time. So we're going to go ahead and do closing arguments. Ms. Scott, you may proceed.
Yes, Judge. I believe that we have shown the court the basis of our request for emergency relief. Judge, we've asked that the court order that the parents be appointed joint managing conservators, that Stacy Valerio be given the primary to determine residence of the child. We've asked that the additional rights and duties be split and that a tiebreaker be put in place for the school, the physician, and any counselor. We've also asked that Carlos Ventura have standard possession as well as guideline child support and continue to provide the child with the Medicaid or medical coverage that is currently in position until other provision can be made. I believe that the court has seen that the mother has been the primary caregiver of this child since the child's birth, with the exception of 2 instances where this mother has taken the step to make sure that the child is safe and the child is provided for. One being when the child came home from Wisconsin because the mother at that time no longer had someone to care and babysit the child while she was working. And then the second time being where she did what was best and put the child's interest and safety first to protect him from COVID while she was working in the COVID care clinic. Those are the only 2 times where Mr. Ventura has ever exhibited a lengthier period of possession than their normal week on, week off, and then discretionary exchanges. And so we'd ask this court to grant the proposed relief that the movement has made and allow for the child to be to reside with the primary of Stacy Valerio.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Ms. Moreno?
Thank you, Judge. And Judge, I think that this case has shown evidence to the contrary of what Ms. Scott just stated. When we talk about 2 instances of Jaden residing with his dad, one of those instances is the fact that Mr. Ventura has had Jaden from February 2020 to present at least half of the time or more. And so also, Judge, that testimony shows that Jaden has been zoned to school based on dad's address since all of his elementary all of his time at Hutchinson Elementary. So since this child started school, he's been zoned based on dad's address. Mom has moved around a couple times, maybe to different areas where he wouldn't have been zoned to Hutchinson. But dad has been the primary decision maker for education. His address has been the primary for the zoning. He's had at least half of the time and even more since February 2020, which is the last year and a half. Jaden has little friends at Hutchinson Elementary. They're all going to promote to Westendorf with him. Dad has enrolled him in sports. Dad has even gone so far as to coach the sports. He spent a lot of quality time raising him, taking him for the majority of his dental appointments, and took him to get glasses, Judge. And so these are the type of parenting, this is the type of involvement that a person who has primary would have. And to the allegation that he's paid no support, well, there would be no expectation for him to pay support when he's the one taking care of all these needs that Jaden has and providing the address where Jaden has spent more than half of his time for most of his life. And so additionally, with regard to the criminal, the allegations of criminal history, Judge, I don't think there's been anything to support the idea that there's been any convictions. We haven't seen any evidence of any convictions, and Mr. Ventura's testimony is that those cases were in fact dismissed as successfully completed deferred adjudications. And additionally, Judge, these are cases that Ms. Villarreal has never alleged that they were secret to her or hidden from her. These are things that she knew about, Judge, and yet she still always placed Jaden in Mr. Ventura's care, always trusted him with the child, always deferred to him for, the school and other things. So now to say that it's an issue, Judge, it was never an issue in November 2016 when Ms. Villarreal wanted to live in Wisconsin by herself. It was never an issue back in February of 2020 when she charged him with the primary care of Jaden. So to bring it up now as some impediment to him having primary, it's insincere, Judge, where she's known about it even prior to relinquishing control of him. And so, Judge, for those reasons, we're requesting to keep Mr. Ventura as the parent who's primarily responsible for designating the residents and making school decisions, and just to award Ms. Villarreal standard possession based on 100 miles.
Thank you, Ms. Moreno. Mr. Gray?
Thank you, Your Honor. It's my understanding, has this court made a ruling on whether the child is going to be interviewed by the court anytime soon?
Child's 10 years of age, going to be 11, August the 30th. Is that correct? Yeah, the court's not going to interview him since it's discretionary right now for purposes of temporary orders. I think I heard enough from the lawyers and from the parties to make a decision on the case. And the court may take that up again prior to final, but at this point, I'm not going to.
No problem. That being said, look, we both have really two good parents here. This court can't make a wrong decision, in my opinion, on what it decides. I have my opinions. I'm not going to express those opinions. I would rather it come from the child trunking potentially directly to the court sometime before a trial. That being said, I will tell you that the home in Victoria is a wonderful home. I think there's a loving family living in that home. I think Mr. Ventura is a wonderful father. I think he has a good support group as well. Although I do believe that child has relied upon the support group in Richmond more than what Dad would like to imply that it was his doing. That being said, you can't go wrong in your decision here. You got two wonderful parents who love this child very, very much, and they are both correct. This is a great kid. He is a good, smart kid. I like the schools in Victoria a little better. Nothing bad against LCISD, but if I had to enroll a child into either one of the schools, I'd probably pick Victoria over LCISD. And if we're going to be going into the quality of the home, that the court has to choose between the two. While there is no bad home here, clearly, in my opinion, the Victoria home offers well better accommodations for the child. And that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Where is the child now? Is the child with mom or is the child with dad?
It's with me.
With dad? Okay.
Yes.
The court's ruling is as follows. Entry of this order will be August the 27th of 2021 at 9 a.m. Ms. Scott, you will draft the temporary order. The parent, and let me say this before I give my ruling. I want to just echo what the amicus said, Mr. Gray said. It's always refreshing for this court when I have two parents that are good parents. I don't get to see that very often. And I can tell you that I find that both mom and dad, even though the two of you didn't get along necessarily well together since there was family violence and issues like that, I do find that both of you are very good parents. And I didn't get it exactly when the family violence occurred. And so because of that, I am going to appoint the parents as temporary joint managing conservators. So this is a joint custody agreement because I find that both parents are making wise decisions and doing things that they should do to make this child feel loved and secure. And I want you to continue to do that. These lawyers picked y'all apart a little bit, but that's their job. And just because mom's lawyer picked you apart a little bit, or mom, just because dad's lawyer picked you apart a little bit, that doesn't necessarily mean the two of you can't co-parent. Y'all were co-parenting previously, and I want you to continue to co-parent because I can tell you that's what's best for him. And that's what's going to make sure he has a bright future. If the two of you can set your differences aside and focus on what's best for him. All right, the parents are normed as temporary joint managed conservators. Mom is given the exclusive right to determine the residence within Victoria or Fort Bend County. Mom will have the exclusive rights to make education, medical, and psychiatric decisions, but all three of those require previous consultation with dad. Mom will have the exclusive right to receive and disperse child support. Marriage and enlistment will require the joint agreement of the parties. All of the rights and duties will be shared independently between mom and dad. Father is awarded a standard possession order for a parent living over 100 miles away from the other parent. In addition, father is to have FaceTime or telephone access with the child on Monday and Wednesday evenings between 5 and 7 p.m. And that doesn't mean the child's going to be on the phone for 2 hours. It just means that there's a 2-hour window there, Mr. Ventura, where you can FaceTime or call him and talk to him and see how his day's going. And that is typically going to last about 30 minutes. I'm not going to set a time limit, though. It'll be a reasonable period of time for you to communicate with him. Also, Dad, that doesn't mean you can't call on Tuesday nights, Thursday nights. You can call anytime you want, but he may not be available on those nights. I'm making mom make him available on Monday and Wednesday evenings. Father is to pay child support in the sum of $182.30, and that is to begin September the 1st. The child is to continue on government assistance. Father is to pay cash medical support of $25 a month, and that is to begin on September the 1st. Any uninsured expenses will be split 50-50 between the parties. The standard mutual injunctions will remain in place. I know there's a standing order, but Ms. Scott, I like to have everything within one order for the parties. So if you can add those temporary injunctions into the temporary order.
Yes, Judge.
Additionally, mom is to, dad is to surrender the child to mom at 6 p.m. This evening. Mom, you're ordered to go pick up the child from dad's residence tonight at 6. Additionally, since I'm ordering child support and since mom agreed to do all the travel, mom, pickup and drop off will be at father's residence. And I believe that completes the ruling of the court. Anything from any of the lawyers that you think I missed?
Judge, I just didn't hear the child support amount.
$182.30. And that's
Okay,
based on minimum wage with him having 2 other children not before the court.
thank you.
I have a question. When do I see my son again?
I'll explain that to you later. Just hold.
All right, thank you. Y'all are excused.
Thank you.